Hi everyone! In this video, I'm going to create this part in CATIA v5. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm going to be using this split screen setup so I can easily point to different dimensions within the drawing. So the first thing I'm going to do is to click on Start, Mechanical Design, and Part Design. I'm going to create a new part and name it CATIA Tutorial number 2 and hit OK. Okay, I'm now in the Part Design workbench, ready to create my component. So how am I going to create my component though? Well, looking at the drawing and looking at the isometric view, I'm first going to create the base of the component. I will then create this L-shaped extrusion. I will then add the radius to the extrusion. I will then create the extrusion at the top of a cylindrical shape together with the hole. And then at the end, I will create this rib in the middle of the part. So the first thing I'm going to do is to click on the Sketch workbench and create a new sketch on the XY plane. Now, looking at the bottom of the drawing, we can see that the base has got a shape of an elongated hole, which is 50 millimeters wide, and it contains two holes, which are 100 millimeters apart, and both of them have a radius of 10 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the command called elongated hole, which is in the same group of commands as rectangle and others. The first point is going to be placed at the origin, and the location of the second point doesn't matter at this point because I will constrain this afterwards. Likewise, the size doesn't matter because I will constrain it afterwards. Okay, as you can see, this dimension appears automatically after creating elongated hole. So just double click on it and change this to 25 millimeters. Now I can still change the length of my elongated hole. So to constrain this, I'm going to click on dimensional constraint, click on the line, and constrain the line to be 100 millimeters long. I'm now going to create these two holes. So I'm going to click on the circle command and place the first circle at the origin. Click on the circle command again, and the second circle is going to be placed at the end of the line. I'm now going to dimension both of these. Click here. The diameter must be 20 millimeters and diameter 20 millimeters for the other as well. Now bear in mind, if you click on circle and place it at the origin, for example, but it doesn't constrain it into that location, meaning that your sketch is still not fully green, it may be because your automatic constraint creation in here, these two icons, are not enabled. If you can't really see these two icons on your screen, just right click on any of these icons and make sure that sketch tools are enabled. As you can see, if I disable them, they disappear. So make sure they are enabled and make sure that both of these icons are active. Great. I'm going to exit the sketch workbench and I'm going to use the path command to extrude this sketch into 3D space. So looking at the top section of the drawing, I can see that the bottom base must be 20 millimeters thick. So for the type, choose dimension and length 20 millimeters. Click OK. Great, as you can see, the base has been finished. Now the next thing, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, is going to be this extrusion in here, in L shape. So for this extrusion, I'm mostly going to be looking at this part of the drawing, and I'm going to be creating sort of this shape. So as you can see from the drawing, this whole section is in the middle of the base. So the first thing I have to do is to create a plane that is in the middle of the part so I can put the sketch on it. If you want to create a plane, you need to go in here and click on the icon called plane. Now if you can't see these icons on your screen, it might be because you don't have them enabled. If you want to make sure that you have them enabled, right click on any of these icons and make sure that reference elements, either compact or extended, is enabled. Alternatively, you can click in the command window and type in C:plane. Hit enter, and that takes you to the exact same command. Okay, so our plane that we need to create must be in the middle of the part. So what I'm going to do is create a new plane, which is going to be offset from a plane, and it is going to be offset from this plane at the origin, YZ plane. Now we need to determine what the offset is going to be. So as you can see, our reference plane, which is at the origin, is placed in the center of the hole because the hole was created at the origin. And if you remember, these two holes are separated by 100 millimeters, which means that half of this distance is 50 millimeters, which is going to be exactly in the middle. So for the offset, I'm going to choose 50 millimeters and click OK. And as you can see, we now created a plane which is in the middle of the component. I'm going to click on New Sketch. I'm going to click on the Profile tool, and I'm going to create a rough sketch of this L shape. So it goes something like this, here, 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 and here. Great. As you can see, I've got a rough sketch of this section. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to make sure that the bottom line is coincident with the top of my base. Now, second thing I'm going to do is to dimension this line. So this line must be in line with the side of my component. So I'm gonna click on this line and make sure that these two are coincident and click OK. I'm now going to define the thickness of this section. So looking at the drawing, it must be 15 millimeters. Dimensional constraint, click on the line, 15 millimeters. Now I'm going to define thickness of this upper section. So again, looking at the drawing, it's 10 millimeters. 10 millimeters. I now want to define length of this relative to the origin. So as you can see, this dimension is 45 millimeters. However, it is pointing to the edge of the part, and we know that we have further 25 millimeters to go to get to the origin. So what I'm going to do is define distance from here to here, double click, and I can do 45, which is this dimension, plus half the width of this base, which is 25, and click OK. I now need to define the height of this. So I'm going to switch into this section of the drawing, this view, and we can see that the distance from the bottom of the base to the top of this extrusion is 70 millimeters. Dimensional constraint, this line, base, 70 millimeters. And my sketch is fully constrained. I'm going to exit the sketch of Workbench. And I'm going to be using path command again to extrude this into 3D space. Now looking at the drawing, we can see that everything is dimensioned from the side. So coming from here, the first dimension 45 points to one side of the extrusion, and the other side is at 105 millimeters, which means that the total width of this is 60 millimeters. So because we are in the middle, I need to extrude this in both directions. So first limit 30 millimeters, click on more, and the second limit is 30 millimeters as well, and click OK. Great. The next thing I'm going to do is to add this radius in here. So as we can see, this radius basically forms a complete arc. So I'm going to click on the fillet command, choose these two edges, and for the radius, I need to choose 30 millimeters because the width of this is 60 millimeters. So I want 30 millimeters either side for them to be connected, and click OK. Perfect. Now the next thing I'm going to do is going to be this hole at the top. So I'm going to create a new sketch, which is going to be placed on this face. And I'm going to click on the circle command and just create a new circle. Now this circle is completely unconstrained. I can change its location and size. So the first thing I'm going to do is to define the size which is 20 millimeters in diameter. I'm now going to define this dimension in here. So I know that this hole must be in the middle of the part. And we can see outline of our plane in here, which is also in the middle, because we created it in the middle. So what I'm going to do is click on the plane, click on the point, the center of the circle, and make sure that these two are coincident. And now this circle can only move up and down. It cannot move left or right because it is constrained to be coincident with the plane. So the distance from the origin to the center of the circle in here in the bottom section of the drawing is 40 millimeters. Place it down and change this to 40 millimeters. And exit the sketch of Workbench. I'm now going to use the pocket command, and I'm going to say that for the type, I want to cut up to last, and click OK. And this is my hole. Perfect. I'm now going to create this extrusion around it of a cylindrical shape. So again, a new sketch on this face. And I'm going to create a new circle. And I know that this circle and my hole, these two must be concentric. So choose concentricity. I'm going to click on dimensional constraint and dimension this to be 35 millimeters. Now I need to create another circle in the middle, and I can create a circle in various ways. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, in my case in the bottom of the screen, and click on Project 3D Elements. Now if you cannot see this group of commands, just right click on any of the icons and make sure that Operation is enabled. If I disable, they disappear. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Project 3D Elements, and I'm going to click on my hole. And as you can see, it projected elements of my hole. I'm going to exit the sketch of Workbench, use the Path command, and I'm going to extrude this, go here, and as you can see, the top of this extrusion is 90 millimeters from the base. And this face is 70 millimeters from the base. So this height is going to be 20 millimeters. So dimension 20 millimeters. Click OK. Perfect. Now the only thing remaining is to create this rib in the middle. So I'm again going to be using the plane that I created before, the plane in the middle of the part. And I'm going to click and create a new sketch. And I'm going to click on the Profile command. And again, just create a rough sketch at first. Perfect. This is a closed sketch. And what I need to do now is to constrain it. So first of all, this line must be coincident with the top of the base. Click OK. This line must be coincident with the side of this L-shaped extrusion. Coincident. And now as you can see, I can still change this and this. So I need to make sure that this point at the end of this triangle is coincident to this line. And likewise, the point at the top must be coincident with the top of this extrusion. And click OK. And as you can see, my sketch is fully constrained. I'm going to exit the sketch of Workbench and just come here, and you can see that the width of the rib, it goes from 70 to 80 millimeters. So the width is 10 millimeters. Path command. Because we're in the middle, we need to be symmetric to either side. So a total width of 10 millimeters means 5 millimeters to one side. Click more. And for the second limit, 5 millimeters again. And click OK. Perfect. Our component is now finished. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it was useful. And please let me know in the comments if you got any questions, concerns, suggestions, or ideas. I'll be happy to answer and interact with you. Thank you very much and have a good day.